Welcome to Joseph TV. We'll be looking at the respiratory system today. The respiratory system, mind you, this system is also known as oxygen delivery system. So the respiratory system is a set of organs that allow a person to breathe and exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide through the body. The integrated system of organs involved in the intake and exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the body and the environment, and including the nasal passage, the larynx, the trachea, the bronchial tubes, and the lungs. The respiratory system has two major functions, which is the external respiration and the internal respiration. So, what is the external respiration? The external respiration is exchanging air between the body and the outside of the environment, while the internal respiration is bringing oxygen to the cells and removing carbon dioxide from them. So we're going to look at the structures involved in the respiratory system. So right here we have the nose here, we have the mouth, we have the trachea, we have the bronchial tube or the bronchial tubes, we have the lungs. We have the lungs there. This system is resting on the diaphragm, which is this. The functions of the respiratory system: one, it supplies the body with oxygen and disposes of carbon dioxide. 2. It filters inspired air. 3. It produces sound. 4. It contains receptors for smell. The fifth one, rids the body of some excess water and heat. While the sixth one helps regulate blood pH. Now breathing. We're going to be looking into breathing right away. So breathing, also known as pulmonary ventilation, consists of two cyclic phases: inhalation, also known as inspiration. A main function, or what it means, is it draws gases into the lungs, while exhalation, also known as expiration, it forces gases out of the lungs. You can see the diagram we have here. The diagram here will give you a better view of what it means. Here you can see we have exhalation here, we have inhalation here. Exhalation from the lungs, while inhalation here, we take what is outside the environment into the system, into the respiratory system, to the lungs, the bronchioles, and the bronchial tubes. You see here we have the lungs, we have the ribs here, and still resting on the diaphragm. So external respiration. Let's go straight to the point here. We have air from the outside environment enters the nose or mouth during inspiration. Remember, we talked about inspiration and expiration. Now, inspiration is the air you take into the lungs, which is also known as inhalation. It composes of the nose and the nasal cavity, paranasal sinuses, the pharynx, which is known as the throat, and the larynx. That all parts of the conducting portion of the respiratory system. That's what we're going to look into right now, which we have the nostrils here, we have the mouth, we have the nasal cavity, we have the throat, which is the lungs here, and we have the voice box, which is the larynx. So the nose, we're going to be looking into it one after another. The nose, also called the external nose, or you can call it the nasals, but this is known as the external nose, divided into two halves by the nasal septum. And it contains the paranasal sinuses, where air is warmed, contains cilia, which is responsible for filtering out foreign bodies. You can go through the diagram and study it for better understanding here. Then we look into internal nares and the external nares, which is the internal is the opening to the exterior, while the external is opening to the pharynx. The nasal conchae, folds in the mucous membrane that increase air turbulence and ensures the most air contacts the mucous membranes. provides an air for respiration. We have the pharynx, one of those organs we looked into. Common space is used by both the respiratory and the digestive system, commonly called the throat. Can go through it for better understanding too. We have the three sections of the pharynx. We have the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. The nasopharynx contains the pharyngeal tonsils, which is also known as the adenoid, which aid in the body's immune defense. The oropharynx, which is the back portion of the mouth that contains the palatine tonsils, which aids in the body's immune defense. The laryngopharynx, bottom section of the pharynx, where the respiratory tract divides into the esophagus and the larynx. You can see a diagrammatic illustration of the nasopharynx and the oropharynx, as well as the laryngopharynx down there. Then we go to the larynx itself. The larynx is also known as the voice box. It's a short, somewhat cylindrical airway, ends in the trachea. It prevents swallowed materials from entering the lower respiratory tract, conducts air into the lower respiratory tract, produces sound, supported by a framework of 9 pieces of cartilage, 3 individual pieces and 3 cartilage pair that are held in position or place by ligament and muscles. Then we have a diagrammatic representation of the larynx here, which is showing the hybrids, showing the epiglottis, showing the thyroid membrane, showing the thyroid cartilage here. And this one is showing the cretothyroid ligament, the cretothyroid muscles here. Then we have the cretothyroid cartilage and the trachea here. So we're going to look into the trachea itself. Mind you, the trachea is also known as the air pipe or the windpipe. It's a flexible tube. It extends through the mediastinum and lies anterior to the esophagus and inferior to the larynx. A cartilage ring reinforce and provide rigidity to the tracheal wall to ensure that the trachea remains open at all times. At the level of the sternum, at the level of the sternal angle, the trachea bifurcates into 2 smaller tubes called the right and left primary bronchia. Each primary bronchus projects laterally towards each lungs. You can see here we have the bronchia here extending from, we have 2 here, we have 2 lungs, so one by your left side and one by the right side, and on the thoracic cavity. So the bronchioles are held in position by the trachea here. We still have the larynx here, the air box. So still have the larynx here. So this is the lungs. You have the left lung and the right lung here. The left lung is divided into 2 lobes by oblique fissure, smaller than the right lung. Cardiac notch accommodate the heart. The right lung is divided into 3 lobes, the oblique and the horizontal fissures, located more superiorly in the body due to liver on the right side. So remember, in the lungs, what happened in the lungs basically is each lung has a conical shape. Its wide concave base rests upon the muscular diaphragm. Its superior region, called the apex, projects superiorly to a point that is slightly and posterior to the clavicle. Both lungs are bordered by the thoracic wall anteriorly, laterally and posteriorly, and supported by the rib cage. Towards the midline, the lungs are separated from each other by the mediastinum. The relatively broad, rounded surface in contact with the thoracic wall is called the costal surface of the lungs. So what we've seen here, I don't know if you can trace my hand now and see this depression here, or this space. The space here is that is occupied by the heart. The heart is a bit tilted to the left, so that is the effect it has on the lungs there. And while the pleural, which is the outer surface of each lungs, and the adjacent internal thoracic wall are lined by a serous membrane called the pleura. The outer surface of each lung is tightly covered by the visceral pleura. While the internal thoracic wall, the lateral surface of the mediastinum, and the superior surface of the diaphragm are lined by the parietal pleura. The parietal and visceral pleura layers are continuous at the hilus of each lung. Just explain that in a minute. Pleural cavity, the potential space between the serous membrane layers is a pleural cavity. The pleural effusion, that's pleuritis with too much fluid. There's too much fluid in the lungs, where you have what we call pleuritis. Pleuritis simply means inflammation of the lungs as a result of too much fluid in the lungs. So at the end of this presentation, we're going to have kind of exercise to carry out. So make sure you take it to the end. We're going to check how effective your breathing or your respiratory system is. So you stay tuned. This is a diagrammatic presentation of the lungs with the air wind or the windpipe, which is a trachea. This one now is showing us exactly everything, every structure in the respiratory system. Here we have the right lobe here. We have the right bronchial. We have the secondary bronchial here. We have the bronchioles and the pleural here. Mind you, this is the right side of the lungs or the body, and this is the left side. So here we have the left lobe, the left bronchial, and the alveoli. And the alveoli is pictured. You can see the picture of the content of the alveoli, which are really the x-axis. It's inside the alveoli. You have the x-axis here, as shown on this picture here. So how lungs works, just go through that yourself. How lungs works too. This is a pictorial aspect of it. Okay, you can see a kind of representation of the lungs here, which has the heart in it. You can see the heart here, and then this is the left lung, the right lung, the trachea, and this is the aorta here, and coming down is the bronchial and the alveoli. Here we have the terminal bronchial, we have the respiratory bronchial, we have the capillary beds here, we have the alveoli here. While we have a branch of pulmonary veins, we have a branch of pulmonary arteries, we have the bronchioles. So that's it. This is breathing. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel as you stay tuned. We're going to be looking at breathing on our next discussion. Thank you for staying tuned.